All right, let's talk some Florida State football. Of course, the boys are in camp. They're in Tallahassee. We got Jason Parker on the line from Chop Chat. Jason, how you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on, Mark.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for stopping by. And Florida State, obviously, I have vowed to other Florida State guests and contributors that we have on that I will refrain from mentioning 5 and 7 too many more times because we're moving ahead to 2019. But
what is 5 and 7? What happened? What happened? Nothing happened last year. There was no football last year.
That was at Wake Forest, right? It had to be somewhere like that. Couldn't be in Florida State, not with that talent. But even the first-year transition, even giving that leeway to a first-year transition for a new head coach, as we see across the country with 12 or 15 programs every year, I was just amazed, flabbergasted. There's a number of adjectives you could use at how ill-prepared this football team looked most of the time. I'm looking at two games that I would consider that they played up to their talent level or close to it when they beat Wake Forest by 3 touchdowns and they squeaked by a decent Boston College team by 1 point. But otherwise, they just did not look prepared.
I think, too, and I have been I don't want to say an apologist, but I've defended Willie Taggart a lot last year, and I will still continue for the reason that what you saw last year was a buildup of years that came from, and I'll flat out say it, Jimbo Fisher, you could tell, stopped caring after 2014. And I'm not saying he didn't want to win, but you could tell that between some of the moves he made, not getting rid of certain assistants that probably should not have been around anymore, and the whole losing to teams you shouldn't lose to was even before Willie got on campus. You look in 2015 to Georgia Tech, 2016 to North Carolina, even 2017 there were a couple losses that shouldn't. The Miami game, either year in 2017 and 2018. So I think a lot of it was, and I think you're starting to see people when they do a deep dive into it go, yes, last year was a bad year. Last year, yes, a lot of the blame does need to go to Willie Taggart because he was the coach. That being said, he was left with a huge mess coming into last year. And I think you're finally starting to see people realize, oh, it was as bad as some people said it was.
Mark Rogers, TV, the voice of college football, talking Florida State. We got Jason Parker on the line from Chop Chat. So in regards to Willie Taggart's off-the-field performance, in regards to the recruiting efforts, your thoughts now that we've seen him do his thing through 2 cycles of recruiting classes?
I think I like the 2 things I would say that I like about, especially just using 2019 as an example, was he recruited the 2 main positions of need, offensive line and secondary. You look at the guys, he brought in 6 offensive linemen. You've got several who are already enrolled, already taking part in spring drills, same with the secondary. And you have, yes, we lost a couple of the big name recruits. Obviously, Nick Cross was the big name when he went to Maryland after being a longtime Florida State commit. But he got positions of need, number 1. Number 2, I like the fact that he went back to recruiting Florida, and in particular South Florida. And I'm a little biased living in South Florida, but he went back to recruiting the hotbeds that Florida State Florida State football was getting before. And there was a certain time towards the end of the Bobby Bowden era and then towards the Jimbo era when there was more recruiting, more national. And I get it. If you can get a 5-star like Cam Akers from Mississippi, I understand that. But to me, and to I think a lot of fans, the best talent is in the state of Florida. And when you're not recruiting your home base, you see what happened. You see a lot of those guys who, yeah, you can be a 5-star in the state of Idaho, but give me a 3-star from Orlando or Tampa or Miami in a heartbeat. And I think Willie has started to do that. That being said, I think there were a few areas that I would have liked to have seen him do better at. No running backs, wide receivers, 1 wide receiver in the group. You know, you don't have to bring in 5 every single class, but I think you need to bring in somebody from each position. And as far as the quarterbacks go, everyone's going to point to that and say, oh, he didn't bring in, you lose some of the guys that have been committed or were big targets towards Florida State. That one hurt. Those hurt a little bit. I do think if the NCAA does approve Jordan Travis, that would be a huge get up because of the fact that he would still have 3 years left.